What's up, YouTube? Ryan Panny here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. I'm kind of shocked I'm saying this, but it is time for a review of the new As I Lay Dying record, Shaped by Fire, out this past Friday, September 20th. This is a band where the idea of them putting out music ever again was so controversial that they had to drop a standalone single over 15 months before this actual record came out, just to sort of warm people up to the idea. Look, obviously it's hard to ignore the fact that the circumstances surrounding this record are rather unique. But if you're looking for some sort of moral or ethical deconstruction of the issue of As I Lay Dying returning with convicted felon Tim Lambesis back on vocals and the implications for fans, you've come to the wrong place. Sure, some context regarding career trajectory and occasionally the personal lives of band members is usually relevant, but these reviews are about two things, and two things only. One, the music. Two, how the music makes me feel. And it's really that simple. So, where we last left the band before their hiatus was their sixth record, Awakened. This was one of my favorite records of all of 2012. What Awakened was basically a full maturation of the band's sound. It was a record that, in a way, they had been building towards all the way back since 2005's Shadows Are Security. It was every element of As I Lay Dying sound up to that point taken to its logical pinnacle. Production-wise, musicianship and intricacy-wise, songwriting-wise, melodically, everything. In fact, I remember very distinctly in the year following the release of Awakened, before everything went down with Tim, my biggest concern was how the band were going to follow that record up. Because if my opinion on it is right, and it really does represent a fully actualized version of 7 years of the band's potential, then the question is, where do they go from here? And the short answer is, there is a significant creative ceiling that the band are basically gonna have to bust through in order to, if their goal is to showcase significant growth album to album, which is something they've been doing since their debut. And that is a challenge that As I Lay Dying would have faced in 2014, had they just continued album to album cycles. And it's a challenge that faces them on Shaped by Fire in 2019. And my other concern with the follow-up to Awakened, which is still relevant now, is that towards the end of that record, there was an increasing emphasis on slightly whinier clean choruses, with My Only Home being a sort of minor example, but Tear Out My Eyes, the closer, being a pretty significant example. Whoa vocals and the whole shebang. Now, these songs actually worked on Awakened because they worked to balance out more aggressive songs elsewhere in the track list, but it was worrisome because if this was indicative, this kind of tail end of the record was indicative of the future creative direction of the band, I think that a whole album of that would be problematic. And as it turns out, I wasn't entirely wrong about that, because the melodic choruses on Shaped by Fire sort of bring some of those concerns to life for me. The batting average on this record, as far as clean choruses, it's not great. The most egregious offender here is definitely the closing track, The Toll It Takes. Just super predictable and plain melodies in this chorus, and the layered screams in the background do not provide any salvation for it whatsoever. I won't let you go. I mean, come on, guys. This song in general actually is just really robotic in its execution and really should have been left off the end of the record. The chorus in Undertow is another one of the worst culprits, and I think the problem here is the way that the first and second repetitions and then the third and fourth repetitions after that land on the same whiny note. It kind of like everything circles back to this one sort of like piercing whiny note. I think that's the problem there. And also the chorus to Torn Between. More sort of butt rock type melodic choices that when you go through previous As I Lay Dying albums, those sort of melodies are either conspicuously absent or less potent, shall we say. And you know how you can tell that this chorus formula needs a little bit of freshening up? Because on this record, when the band break free from it, the results are undeniably better. A perfect example being the heavily thrash influenced Gatekeeper. Seriously, this song, like right down to the Slayer solo, is so indebted to thrash metal, I love it. Anyway, the menacing growled hook on here, and with the layered screams, is just such a fucking breath of fresh air after the nauseating combo of Undertow and Torn Between before it. It's just such a nice change of pace. And the song Only After We've Fallen also breaks free from that tired formula with this really well executed clean and harsh vocal trade-off in which there's this sort of seismic musical shift going on underneath that adds to the contrast here. So it's when you see the band change it up to better results that you most notice these problematic clean choruses over here. Interestingly though, when there are good lyrics attached, it does help some of these clean choruses go down easier for me. Like Redefined is a good example of that, which is a song that I otherwise wouldn't like all that much musically, but it's really inspiring lyrically. It's just about how all the pain and suffering that we go through is the catalyst to our growth. And while we might look back and wish we hadn't gone through certain things, that's completely the wrong attitude, because ironically, it's those challenges and those hardships that allow us to grow and evolve and improve. It's that pain and suffering that gives us the power to move forward. And in the words of this song, agony today is tomorrow's strength. And that's just such a wonderful outlook, albeit one that's fairly common in As I Lay Dying lyrics, but I guess it just hit home for me on this song. Take What's Left too, great introspective lyrics on that one. The Wreckage, which would otherwise be the fucking worst chorus on this album. I just really love this sentiment here. We don't get to choose when it rains. We can fight or just get washed away. Will we be transformed or feel like we're drowning? I just love those lyrics. So some good lyric writing here is kind of the chaser, if you will, to help these sappy clean choruses go down a bit easier. But there are definitely exceptions here. I think that the anthemic title cut has a great hook. I think that My Own Grave is really powerful and has more of a classic As I Lay Dying feel. Blinded is probably my favorite clean chorus on the album. Just what a strong melody that is, and really underscored by some killer lead guitar playing. And another major counterbalance to my complaints about some of these choruses, no matter what you say about any element of Shaped by Fire, one thing remains absolutely certain. You can't knock the riffs. You just can't. Like Jay-Z said, you can't knock the hustle. In terms of As I Lay Dying on Shaped by Fire, you cannot knock the riffs. The guitar riff writing on here is fucking phenomenal front to back. Like Torn Between, that's a song where the riffs are so well written, that bouncy verse riff especially, which is my favorite on the album, the riffs are so well written on the song that it completely cancels out a subpar chorus, which to me is a pretty remarkable feat. Blinded too, I fucking love that tremolo riff. It's like fucking jet fuel for that song. And The Wreckage too is just loaded front to back with amazing guitar moments, that crushing ending sequence being a particular highlight for me. The Toll It Takes is the only spot on the album where the guitar riffs start to feel a bit stale, but in general, this album gets an A for riffs, absolutely. As I Lay Dying continued to school the legions of second wave of metalcore bands that they inspired in the proper balance of breakdowns with actual riffs containing multiple notes. So many of these newer bands and these verb to noun bands could really take some musical cues from what As I Lay Dying are doing here. Now back to my first concern following Awakened for a minute here. That sort of came true as well, unfortunately. On Shaped by Fire, As I Lay Dying really sound frozen in time. Like as an As I Lay Dying fan, in 2010, you could have pretty much thought up this album in your head. I think in your head, the choruses here would be slightly less whiny and less piercing, but you could have pictured everything. There's not really any tangible creative growth to speak of between Awakened and this one. Shaped by Fire is more or less As I Lay Dying honing a sort of watered down version of Awakened. You feel this staleness and repetition when the first riff in Blinded kicks off. You feel it in the intro to Take What's Left. Just this general sense that we're kind of stuck back in time. For me, this really does weigh down the listening experience. Just the fact that, sure, it was a major risk for this band to return at all. I give them that. But where they took absolutely zero risks is creatively. And that's always a bit disappointing for me. I get it though, I get it. If you're As I Lay Dying in this case, you don't really want to rock the boat. You're sort of in the mindset of winning back old fans and making sure that those people who bought tickets on the Powerless Rise tour 10 years ago are still with you. So I totally understand it from their point of view. I just think that if this record had come out in 2014, people would have been a lot harsher on it for the lack of album-to-album growth or maturation. But look, it's a very enjoyable record. And of course, the flip side to my criticisms about the repetition, and I don't want to make a crude, low-hanging fruit analogy to banging an ex-girlfriend, but there is a sort of comfortable and joyous familiarity about this album. And I think that's what fans wanted. I don't think most fans wanted what I wanted, which was the band to not repeat themselves. And that's totally fair. But for purposes of this review, my two key critiques remain: A, the stale formula, and B, some poor melodic choices in a bunch of the clean choruses. But Shaped by Fire is a lot of fun, and I think it will successfully reestablish As I Lay Dying, and I think it will also probably pick up some Gen Z fans who are sort of coming of age listening to As I Lay Dying's offspring instead of the real deal. Shaped by Fire gets a 7 out of 10 from me. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking right over here, as well as checking out any of the other rock or metal related content that I publish here on a weekly basis. Really appreciate you watching, liking, disliking, interacting, commenting, just engaging in any way. Twitter, Instagram handle @RyanPannyMusic. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon.